Farm Progress Broadcast presents This Week in Agribusiness, serving America's most essential industry. Brought to you by Case IH. Solutions for every challenge. Equipment for every farm. Case IH, built by farmers.
Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us here for This Week in Agribusiness. I'm Mike Pearson. The big headline this week was the end after 43 days of the longest shutdown in U.S. history. What this means for agriculture is that some long-delayed data is beginning to make its way back out to the markets. We did get a heads up that export sales reports will resume from the USDA on Thursday, November 20th, and grains analysts are spending this weekend digging into the first world agricultural supply and demand estimates released since September. One theme from those reports is that both pest and disease pressures nipped yields for corn and soybeans at the end of the growing season. While we were at the Farm Progress Show this year, I had the chance to talk with Dale Ireland of Syngenta about some new tools available to help protect those yields in soybeans.
Yeah, so basically what those two pests do, or pathogens as we call them, they reduce yield potential. They both attack roots. It may not show a lot above ground, but underground, these are threats to the root system of the plant. Nematodes are microscopic roundworms, and microscopic roundworms feed on roots, keeping that root from growing and actually exhibiting the potential that that root can have. So under any type of heat or drought type of stress, you have less moisture and nutrient uptake, which means you'll shed more flowers. You can shed more pods also, which means loss of yield. When this occurs, it opens up the root system. Those microscopic roundworms come in and out of that root, opening that root system for more infection from Fusarium virgiliforme, which causes SDS. So all of these things degrade the root system's ability to uptake moisture and nutrients, is in a nutshell.
So let's talk about how some of the new seed treatments from Syngenta could help alleviate those issues.
Right, absolutely. So we've been working on a new product based on Timerium technology. It will be branded as Victrato. I've been working with this on soybeans for the last 10 years in the field. So it's about time for this to take the field, if you using a football analogy. And we're really ready for this because what we've shown is we have a new level of protection against all the major species of nematodes that attack soybeans, as well as sudden death syndrome and red crown rot. This will be the first product registered for red crown rot nationally.
Wow. For 2026, what sort of results should they expect? What have your trials indicated so far?
So against the leading SDS competitive product, Timerium or Victrato beats it 91% of the time by almost 5 bushels under moderate to heavy SDS pressure. And it beats Saltro, which is our leading product, 87% of the time. So it really is setting a new level of protection. And then for nematodes, it's several bushels better than the leading competitor, depending on the environment and the nematode. So what we're seeing is a whole new level of plant protection performance from Victrato.
So if we've got growers who want to get a jump on next season's planting, they want to learn more about Victrato, where would you send them for more information?
So the Syngenta Seed Care site, certainly. They can talk with their local Syngenta Seed Care retailer. Anywhere that they've ever received information about Cruiser Max Apex or Saltro, they can also learn more about Victrato.
Thanks to Dale Ireland of Syngenta for filling us in on what's to come with Victrato. If you'd like to learn more, visit syngenta-us.com. Our market update is brought to you by Farm Futures. Keep up with these volatile commodity markets at farmfutures.com. Joining me this week to break things down is Jacob Burks of agmarket.net. And Jacob, of course, we saw the government return data back to the market. We're watching for all of that. Traders will continue to break that down. But the cattle market remains volatile. What are traders watching here in the live cattle market?
Well, the money flow into this market is kind of been absent, and when you see some news that hits the market, such as these tweets coming from a very powerful source, it puts people on the fear mode. And when fear mode happened, they started running for the doors and moved things probably quicker than it was. So the cattleman right now, if he's looking out in the sale barn, looking out in the cash market, he's kind of wondering what's going on because it hasn't been as bad at the sale bars. Now, granted, we did have a big move down in the cash market whenever the markets fell last week. But this week we found a little bit of stability. So what he's watching is where is it comfortable to manage his risk at right now? With the futures moving a little bit faster and quicker than what they probably should, and most of that has to attest to what that money flow did. Now remember, we built a lot of money flow and a lot of long position from these funds on this way up, and whenever the negative news started to hit, they ran pretty fast.
So now that most of that big money, that speculative money, has exited the live cattle complex, if these fundamentals remain intact, I would assume that means they could come back in. Jacob, is that a possibility? Could we see another run for the record?
Oh, I totally believe so. I mean, we built the perfect storm here. We're still not importing cattle over. We still had relatively good pasture conditions out west. You saw an economy that has stayed pretty strong. So there's a lot of factors out there right now that are saying, hey, this thing's not over. We still have a shortage of cattle. We still have a high protein value that people have told us, hey, they want to continue to buy. So can this thing continue? Absolutely. Now look at what happened today on this move down too. We went right down there to a major moving average, a major technical spot that these funds and this investment community tends to watch, and that's a long-term support level that we touched in about every contract of the fat cattle, and we did exactly what we were hoping for. We bounced off of it, so we do feel like we have a solid level of support down there around that 200-day moving average for the live cattle contract.
Well, that is good to hear. And of course, that live cattle, all of that strength eventually makes its way back to the consumer. Are they buying beef? And they continue to do that, so credit to the consumer. But Jacob, on the feeder cattle side, I understand there's a little more risk in that market because there is that political border closure. Any risk to the Mexican border reopening, do we think, in that feeder cattle complex?
Well, absolutely. I mean, I think that's President Trump has made it very evident that he wants the border open. I do believe that I trust that the safe fails that we're watching in the manners that we're going to be putting in play to make sure that we open it at the right time is in play. I feel strongly about that. But still that fear of when does that happen and when do we see that influx of cattle coming in. And if you look at what's happening with these sales, these fat cattle, these feed yards, they're needing cattle down south. They're short in that Texas area. And I think that they're craving that border to get opened up sometime. And so I think that the rancher, does have to, make sure he's watching that and paying attention, because when the border opens, it will make a big difference on what that feeder cattle price does.
So for those folks who are maybe spring calvers, they're looking out to that February, March timeframe, would you be putting some risk management on here before that border headline maybe becomes an issue down the road?
Yeah, and I think just it's human nature to see a big move like that and the eyes open and think, wow, what do we do here at these levels after you see a huge move? I mean, for the cow-calf guy that does have that, you're still in a very profitable spot, not as much as it was. And I think that using some type of low risk, strategy that's going to leave that top side open is smart. I mean, we have a lot of gaps to fill. I said earlier that I do believe that we have an opportunity to see the market move because we still don't have that many more cattle. The fear is what happens if we do start importing. What happens if we see tariffs come off from the Brazil beef situation, and we do find a little bit lower level that we get comfortable in.
All right, lots to watch in this cattle complex as the weeks move forward. We'll be back with more analysis from Jacob Burks at agmarket.net after this. Our market update is brought to you by Farm Futures. Keep up with these volatile commodity markets at farmfutures.com. We're talking about the livestock markets with Jacob Burks, Chief Experience Officer at agmarket.net. And Jacob, we saw the hog market come to life a little bit this week. What's going on in the world of pork?
I look at this market as we really ramped up production and going into the holiday season. I feel like we maybe a little bit overdid it. I mean, we've had a pretty slow grind to these hog prices here over the last 2 months. We talked about when we're talking cattle regarding the 200-day long-term support line. And the hogs didn't respect that level. We pushed lower through that on several days. And it wasn't until this last week that we said, hey, maybe this Chinese structure of imports could liven up until we got excited again here. And then we kind of followed the cattle up here last week. So, we almost have like a breath of fresh air for the hog guy right now. I think we're going to see a little bit of consolidation here. And it feels like some of these technicals that we've been watching in the cattle now have livened up a little bit on that hog side.
All right, and on the cash market, are we still seeing consumers, are we seeing pork demand increase at all with cattle prices, beef prices, where they're at the retail level?
Yeah, I mean, if you look back to the perfect storm that we talked about in the cattle, one of the other part of the perfect storm is the fact that we did see some disease pressure in the hog barns that they really couldn't ramp up that production as quickly as what they could have. But as you go through there, you look at the overall economy, and that stuff that we've talked a lot about is demand for this protein, and it really hasn't slowed down. You've seen this hog market along with the poultry. We expect some supplementary products to come in and take over whenever we're looking at these high cattle prices. And then when you start looking at the cutouts and what we've done, yeah, it's been strong and it stayed strong. Even going back and switching gears a little bit to the macro side of things is, we just made contract highs this week in the stock market in the Dow. So it's something that we still feel like the demand side of the picture on this protein and the hogs especially continue to have an opportunity going into this holiday season to really pick up here.
All right. Well, another protein source that has seen a surge in demand since coronavirus times is dairy. Market's been volatile. Where do we sit right now in Class 3 milk, and what are you watching here over the next couple of weeks?
Well, I mean, firstly, for the dairymen, you've seen 2024 provide a lot of opportunity in several ways. We had some really good prices coming through 2024, and since then we've had this slow grind lower. One of the things with the government report that we've been missing, it was milk production. This week we finally got a milk production report came out, and it wasn't friendly. We talked about a 4.2% increase over last year of milk production. So, as we've had a little bit of cash in our pocket and the dairies coming through 2024, they did a great job of increasing quality in their herd as well as growing that herd. And this production number with seeing a little bit of a gap, it kind of hit the markets pretty strong this week whenever we finally saw the number coming out at 4.2% increase.
Do we expect to see continued demand for cheese and butter driving the dairy complex?
I think so. I think demand's been strong. I think the optimism that we see right now is this export situation. Are we going to be able to continue to be able to push this product out in the dry wave form or in other areas? And I think it boils down to a lot of things that we're talking about in agriculture right now. Will China be available?
Jacob Burks, Chief Experience Officer with AgMarket.net. Thanks for joining us this week.
Hey, thanks for having me, Mike. I appreciate it.
Agriculture meteorologist Greg Solier now brings us his farm weather forecast for the week ahead.
Well, the rain has made a return to the Pacific Northwest, it seems. Greg, is that going to continue?
Yep, the old atmospheric river into play, and we'll continue on there. And a turn to the south along the cold California current will get some significant moisture with time, even into parts of California, the desert southwest, and a movement to the east-northeast. A pretty active weather pattern, actually, for much of the middle part of the country into Corn Belt locales as well. But here's the next in a string of these weather systems moving ashore. Some nice recharge of late, relatively high snow levels. So no need to worry about any accumulation of significance for now. Meanwhile, one more little piece of lingering cool to cold air and a little rain, snow sprinkle moving across parts of the Dakotas. How about the cold and the snow farther south and east of there last week, and a change of dramatic proportions underway, but back to reality as the days wear on. And the next weather system, two more stacked up out here through the Treasure Valley westward to the Rogue River Basin. Somewhat lowering snow levels, no super cold air, windy weather and a moderation of temperatures and a pretty good covering of some wet snow and rain. No big deal with outdoor work or livestock operations, even in the higher country, big sky country. Meanwhile, into the southwestern reaches of the country where they have been short-lived on any significant weather systems, this will be a pretty dynamic setup, the first of a couple to come on through. One weak feature around the Four Corners, a windy, warmer scenario rushing northward, and a couple of showers and thunderstorms. Those central and south end winter wheat fields will get significant moisture with this weather system on the move. Another one on its heels, some pretty solid coverage, outbreaks of showers, some thunderstorms as well, high snow levels, but significant moisture. And even in the desert southwest, these systems will swing to the north and northeast, drawing windy, warmer weather and some showers and thunderstorms too across parts of the central and southern plains. Maybe some active storms, but significant moisture there too as the week wears on.
Northern Corn Belt going to be the recipient of some of that moisture, and will it be rain?
It will be primarily rain, a little mix from time to time up near the Canadian border and into sections of the upper Midwest. This is the first in a string of these little pieces of weather systems coming out of of that western trough and that atmospheric river. Seasonal temperatures return coming off some of those surprise snows into parts of the eastern Corn Belt and down into the Great Lakes areas. But think of it as moisture back in the ground, and folks been clamoring for some significant moisture with harvest and field work done. It will be on the way and out towards Kansas City, by the way, for the NFAB get together. We've got some pretty good rain moving in through here into the Ohio Valley. Cool, cloudy, high pressure for the upper Midwest. No cold air in sight, but a slew of weather systems in sight for much of the Corn Belt areas coming forward here with rain, primarily the precipitation event there. Meanwhile, windy, wet weather across the south end of the winter wheat fields. Dry weather on east across the Delta and southeastern states where, it was a cold one last week. Frost and freeze, 28 degrees all the way down to Mobile, Alabama. Warmth back into the Ohio Valley, and with time, the jet stream swings in from the south and southwest. Showers and thunderstorms across the desert southwest, Rio Grande Valley into much of the southeastern part of the winter wheat belt, and a warm up in temperatures as well.
What should folks in the eastern Corn Belt and Northeast expect next week?
Still a couple of rounds of some cold and snow from the St. Lawrence River Valley into sections of New England. That was a story last week as well. A weak system down across the Ohio, but we're flooding plenty of atmospheric moisture into position at all levels. Maybe a little rain snow mix into the northern Great Lakes region. Temperatures continuing to moderate, and as the week wears on, these features kind of lining up along that cusp of warm air across the plains, systems over the top, and a good covering of rain. Maybe a little thunder as well, but some of these same areas that are still drought-stricken getting significant moisture as the week wears on. Cold, high pressure across the northeast of New England. A little bit of a rain snow mix across parts of the St. Lawrence River Valley. So milder and wetter, the operative weather words across much of the Corn Belt. Again, we're pretty much wrapped up with field work. Now time to improve dryness and drought. Southeastern states, and boy, it was cold last week. Readings into the upper 20s to mid 30s all the way down into the Florida Panhandle, 35 at Orlando. Meanwhile, this week milder with some showers, a couple of thunderstorms over the southeastern end of the winter wheat belt. Maybe a patch of frost into areas of the Carolinas early in the week, and then later into the week, this boundary across much of the southeastern part of the plains. Gulf moisture working on northward. The jet stream in from the south and southwest, and the all added up effect is an increase in showers and thunderstorms across much of the Delta region, southeastern plains. A couple of showers on the eastern side of Florida with that northeast wind flow. Milder temperatures in store across the Tennessee Valley back into the mid-Atlantic region.
Closed captioning this week is brought to you by Farm Progress. Their team of experts reports on innovative solutions and essential information for your farm business. Visit farmprogress.com to stay updated. Dr. Eric Scherter of Corteva joined me recently to discuss the newest changes in plant protection technology and how they could have helped growers out in a challenging year like this one.
Yeah, when you think about 2025, Mike, whether you're talking about corn, soybeans, cereals, we had our normal disease complexes that we typically see. But there was a four-letter word being tossed around the coffee shop when it comes to disease, and that was rust. And it was bad this year, from north to south, east to west. In fact, Mike, we typically get one in-season application. We had growers making two this year just to keep ahead of that. And with Forcevo fungicide in our testing this year, our newest 3 mode of action product, not only do you get preventative, but you get the curative. And that was so important in 25. In fact, we had one grower in a test actually got a 49 bushel per acre yield advantage with Forcevo followed by Approach Prima. Now, that's a testament to what we're bringing, but it just shows you how strong a disease pressure we had this year out there, which is not good for the grower, but it's good to have really good flexible tools like Forcevo fungicide.
It is. And so Forcevo, I know a few growers had the chance to work with it this year. Are you hoping more will next growing season?
So we're actually we did wide area testing here in 2025. We're launched sales for this upcoming season. Based off what we're seeing and what our growers' excitement level, I think we're going to have a really good year coming up.
Well, that's fantastic. Let's talk about those corn herbicides from Corteva. You guys have a fantastic lineup.
When I think of corn herbicides, and I think of the farmer out there, they're looking for flexibility, options, things to make their lives easier. The good news is with Resicor Rev, you're getting that deep in-season weed control, long-lasting, wide spectrum, but it's giving you more options. So, when you think about a tight economy, growers are looking for ways to save dollars. Well, Resicor Rev is probably the gold standard for tank mixability with UAN, ATS, and many other products. And that weed and feed, saving you some dollars for making a second trip. Well, that long length of residual paid dividends this year. You think about the rains kept us out of the field. When we finally wanted to get back in or could get back in, that's where growers were reaching for Cairo herbicide. We just swapped out the HPPD actives there. We're giving you a little more grass control, still good, excellent broadleaf control, and that in-season residual to get you all the way to canopy closure. Flexibility up to 20 inches, long-lasting residual. Those are things those are tools that we try to provide our customers to give them more options.
Well, that makes a lot of sense, Eric. Now that's on the corn side. Let's
Right.
talk soybeans because we've got a lot of focus on soybeans this year. We've got growers trying to maximize that crop out there in the field to really maintain or maximize that revenue. Let's talk about Inversa this year. What did you notice?
Well, with Inversa, and we've launched a lot of new products, Mike, kind of starting in the season. When you think about soybeans, that's just unfortunately, we've launched a lot of new innovations, modes of actions, new actives in other crops like Celebro, nematicide. Adavelt active is a new fungicide we're launching. But when you look at our industry, we've not been able to launch as many new actives or modes into soybeans. So what we've chose to do is really use innovation and formulation science to bring new things or technologies to the market or underutilized technologies. So let's think like Sonic Boom. That's a new sulfentrazone and metribuzin premix. Well, metribuzin's been around a while. Growers have used metribuzin. They know if I get the rate too high, I'm gonna get a lot of crop response. Well, that's what's really been able to be solved with Sonic Boom. We built a new co-crystalline structure, which is kind of gets out there, that's Star Wars like, but we still got the great weed control, but we minimize that crop response. Same thing goes really with Kyber Pro. We're bringing 3 modes of action there in that particular product, still working on that metribuzin. We brought in Zidua, and we also brought in Valor. And when you think about Valor in a burn down situation, Mike, you throw a little bit of glyphosate, just a splash of 2,4-D, depending on your winter animals, and you've got a tremendous, tremendous burn down program. Again, saving that grower money, but giving you that 6 weeks, maybe up to 8 weeks of residual activity, because we know when they go to in season, we're going to be using Enlist 1. It's been proven time and time again, but that's where Inverse, the product you were asking, comes in, layering that residual out there to get you that canopy closure. So we're not fighting weeds all the way through the season. So it's a systems approach there, and we're trying to bring innovation to drive that.
That makes sense. Now, are you hearing any stories from the field on success with these combinations battling back some of those major challenges the growers are facing, like pigweed?
Well, in our business, Mike, the one thing I always say, we do not like to go trophy hunting. It's not good to go after 5-foot tall weeds. So the sooner growers can go out there, the better off they are. But that's where that residual, when your residual runs out too early and you're at V2, I don't know a grower alive that likes to go spray that early in the season for post. That's a long season. By having those trusted residuals that get you further in the season, it just marries things up a lot nicer and gets you to that canopy closure the way you would like.
All right. Now, you don't just have tools for corn and soybean growers. Cereal growers also have a new mode of action. Eric, fill us in on Tolvera.
Yeah, Tolvera herbicide, one of our new products, had a very great year here in 2025. We were able to bring a new active into the cereals market, which you don't see a lot of new actives per se in cereals. We've built a lot of great foundation products with Arlex active, but this was our first new HPPD mixed with bromoxynil. So you get things like kochia, narrowleaf hawksbeard. You also get wild buckwheat, all problematic broadleaves. But we're also getting green and yellow foxtail control, which for that PNW or that Northern Plains market, those are key driver weeds. Now that in itself is a huge, huge lift off the grower. Great weed control. But for a lot of these markets, you're also thinking about plant back rotations. If we can give you a more favorable rotation or have less restrictions, we can go into crops like canola, winter wheat, lentils, peas, other things like that we can follow up quicker, get a greater ROI on that acre. That's what the growers are looking for. More flexibility, but still delivering that excellent weed control.
Our thanks to Dr. Eric Schurter of Corteva. Leave it here. More This Week in Agribusiness coming up.
Farm Progress Broadcast presents This Week in Agribusiness, serving America's most essential industry. Brought to you by Pioneer. Plant with confidence. Plant the #1 corn and soybean seed of the U.S. Pioneer.
Welcome back to This Week in Agribusiness. Max Armstrong had a chance to visit our 3 growers from the Plant Smart, Grow Smart series with BASF this past week to reflect on some of the challenges and decisions made during this growing season.
talk about disease pressures to begin with and fungicides. You had some tar spot, right?
Yep, we had tar spot. We've had tar spot now for the last probably 4 to 5 years, I think. We've been spraying, Veltima is a product that we spray. We spray it as a part of our production every single year. I think this year probably was our least infected year as far as tar spot. So sitting in the grain cart like I do in corn, you can see it, but we've had it way heavier previous years.
David, you use Veltima, as I recall. What did you see with yield, for example?
We've used it since it was out. When we first started this fall, we seen 40 bushel over strips that we left. That's extreme, but it was there. So it's good product.
Plant health, can you see it visibly in the...
Yeah. We had some sprayed with a drone, and he had it set just a little too wide, and you could see it. Get above it, you could see that 5 or 6 foot strip there, and when Nathan hit it with the combine, 40 bushel.
At your place, Nick, I know we were talking about fungicide and your use there. Let's share some thoughts around the table here.
It was a good year to use fungicide. I think, like you said, 40 bushel minimum. We completed our corn harvest, and I'd say 90-some% of our fields, we still had green stalks. It's just consistent. There's a lot of people trying to get our generic concoctions, and the Veltima has always been a consistent product, and I know what it's going to be when at the end of it. And I'm very happy with it. We use an airplane. I feel it's more consistent. You can tell if there's a spot that's missed in a corner or an edge of a field. You go by a field and the first 3 or 4 rows might look a little off, but you get up above it and it was just green as a gourd. it was a big difference for us this year. And we had some tar spot move in from the north, but not horrible. Nothing like you guys probably experience up there. And you guys got more rust down south. We kind of catch bits and pieces, but for the most part, we had probably the healthiest crop we've ever had.
We'll do the corn with Veltima because just the plant health at the end. I've fungicide for years, and that's all it was about, was the plant health, because a lot of our corn will have to stand up into December. Yeah, a point or two on moisture probably is right, higher than non-sprayed, but with the rust and the tar spot and what goes on, I won't be able to sleep at night.
The economics, as we think about still lagging commodity prices, you look at it and you think, okay, is it worth the investment? And I'm sure if we don't see an improvement of the corn price this winter, there will still be growers reevaluating as pressures continue to build. How do you address that?
We'll go to plenty. Every year there's another series of meetings and research and plots that are done that are going to prove or disprove that the fungicides pay for themselves. We've found, even with the economics where we're at today, that fungicides always at least return the investment, return your money. Like he said, you guys say it's healthy corn, you get it all. The stalk is healthy, the chopping corn header. That's a big thing for us is residue management, for next year's whether it's a dry bean crop or if it's next year's sugar beet crop. So nothing helps out better if you have a healthy plant when you run across that field. It just chops up nice and you don't have those ears of corn where you're gonna have to spray for that volunteer corn next year.
And you can see the full Plan Smart, Grow Smart video series online at plansmartgrowsmart.com.
Agriculture meteorologist Greg Solier returns now with his extended farm weather forecast for the country.
Next week sounds like it's going to be an active weather week. Greg, who's going to see the precipitation?
In some areas, moisture laden as well, and that's relatively good news in some of these still ongoing dry and drought-ridden areas of the country. Northeastern states, with time, will get into it, more so into the eastern and central Corn Belt locales, down to the lower Mississippi Valley. Yeah, severe weather potential, Gulf Coast, parts of Texas, even in the desert Southwest with one of these cold air systems up aloft, moving from the Pacific Northwest on southward. So significant moisture the week wears on. Most folks kind of wrapped up on the fieldwork sense, so bring it on here with moisture recharge in the week to come.
What do you expect to see temperature-wise for the week of Thanksgiving?
Crack open the kitchen window with the bird in the oven. You've got plenty of warmth relative to mid to late November, all the way into the northeastern states. 50s, some 60s expected. Warmth over the southeastern part of the country. No Arctic air in sight, but still somewhat cooler than average weather all the way into the southern valleys of California, with still a pretty busy weather pattern, but with the absence of any real cold air for now. Only higher peaks across the Rockies and the High Plains get some snowfall. Parts of the upper Midwest back into parts of southeastern Canada. Otherwise, some significant moisture, rain, and thunderstorm activity too from the Ohio Valley and northeastern states down through Texas, and wet weather continues on into the central and southern valleys of California.
How about that first full week of December? What do you expect to see?
Now, mild weather continues on, but cold air beginning to creep into sight here. This is the first of two lobes that'll be moving on through over the next month or so, and this will be a progressive one building from west to east, not southward. So warmth over the eastern part of the country, well above average down through Texas and the southwestern part of the country. Again, a sliver of somewhat chillier than average weather to the north, and that real Arctic air north of the Canadian border and staying there for now. A little busier weather pattern with regard to winter precipitation, Pacific Northwest, parts of the central plains, the rain snow line as far south as I-80 back into parts of southeastern Canada. Otherwise, more moisture and additional drought relief for the northeast, Ohio Valley into the lower Mississippi Valley too.
Does that Arctic air make an appearance December 7th?
It may slip into the northernmost Great Lakes regions, parts of the northeast and New England, but relatively short-lived, probably closer to Christmas or at least in the middle of December. We'll keep an eye on the Arctic air, but the meanwhile time includes warmth over the southwestern reaches of the country. Still a pretty busy weather pattern with snow up through the upper Midwest, parts of the southern Great Lakes region, and showers and thunderstorms too down through Dixie.
Our Farm Progress Update is brought to you by Brandt Industries. Lead the field with Brandt's lineup of versatile high-speed discs and achieve better results with every pass. Visit brandt.ca for more. Pam Caraway, the executive editor at Farm Futures, has spent the week with ag lenders at the American Bankers Association Ag Lenders Conference in St. Louis, Missouri. Pam, thanks for joining us this week.
Delighted to be with you, Mike.
Now, we did get the big survey of ag lenders released just ahead of this conference. And Pam, what were some of the main takeaways?
The biggest takeaways are that we are going to see farm sector profitability decline. And they saw that decline in 2025, and coming into 2026, they expect that to dip below 50% over the coming year for the first time since 2020.
Well, that is bad news. Now, is this uniform across the country, or is it pockets of troublesome spots in agriculture?
So it's pockets. Dr. Dave Cole likes to refer to the bifurcated. Those words are big. So we're seeing a dual economy here. Livestock is doing well, as might be expected. It's important for us to remember, though, that livestock wasn't doing well for a while. And so they aren't necessarily making money hand over fist. Row crop is struggling, but depending on the producer.
That's what it's all about. It all depends on the producer, which is why those averages that get talked about, Pam, sometimes are a tough way to market your farm. What do you advise growers to think about when they're looking at big numbers like this?
It's important to look at those break-evens that we see, those averages that we see as a good benchmark. Look at how you're doing against that average, but look at your own break-evens. Take a strong look at what you could do differently. One of the things that came out in the meeting this week was that the higher producers, the higher profit farms and operations are seeing cash revenue streams of 3 to 6. Whereas it used to be a farm had maybe 1 or 2 revenue streams. So look at where you can increase that cash flow. Look at where you can find other ways. It's a best risk management strategy going, right?
It is.
Have more than one source of income.
Diversification. It works on your crop mix. It also works on your income stream. And of course, your team at Farm Futures will be digging into these numbers and reporting over the next couple of weeks. Pam, where can our audience go to stay connected with the team at Farm Futures?
Come visit us at farmfutures.com and make sure to subscribe to our market newsletter. We put out a newsletter twice a day, every day that the market's open.
We need that information in this fast-changing age. Pam Caraway, Executive Editor at Farm Futures, thank you so much for filling us in on what's coming from the world of ag lending.
Delighted to be here, Mike.
Now on This Week in Agribusiness, it's Max's Tractor Shed, where we spotlight another great American farm tractor. Even though it's cold, you'll still see some of those old tractors out there, maybe at a plow day where some folks get together, or, as was the case over the past week or so, moving snow with one of the old tractors. And then there are the holiday parades coming up. You may find heat housers on those tractors to protect the operators there too. Max's Tractor Shed is brought to you by Lundell Plastics, producers as you get ready for the season ahead. In this off-season, take a look at the tough polyplastic products products from Lundell Plastics at Odebolt, Iowa. Now, you can order online. You can order their catalog online. Take a look at the parts there in the catalog. Call them up and order the parts, or you can order through the website too, LundellPlastics.com. Well, out there on that old tractor this time of the year, you want some protection if you don't have a cab on it, and that's the case for folks who still like to use the old machines. Here's a nice looking one in Wisconsin. This nice Alice Chalmers D17 has a heat houser on it there. Nathan Nelson owns it at Cumberland, Wisconsin. Here's a Farmall H. This is in Sanilac County, Michigan. Gary Heberling has a windbreaker there. He says this is the last one his dad purchased in 1968, and he still uses it. Look at those grease spots. You can tell it's withstood the test of time. But here are a couple of brand new ones. Now, I don't know if Gary Heberling in Michigan can convince Tony Simon over in Ontario to sell one of these. Tony has these at Amherstburg, Ontario, but he underscored that these are not for sale. I wonder what he'll do with them. They sure look nice, all right. Mark Stock would say anything can be sold. He's probably sold his share over the years. Here's the report now from Big Iron Auctions.
Well, hello, Max. Big Iron is honored to be conducting so many retirement sales in November and December. Man Hay Company, they are retiring by Gothenburg, Nebraska, selling 97 items on Wednesday, November the 19th, a 2012 Case IH Puma 215 mechanical front tractor, a Great Plains 1500 series grain drill, 2021 John Deere 560M round baler, a John Deere R450 self-propelled windrower. Greg and Trudy Maheen from Montezuma, Kansas, selling a Komatsu W200-6 wheel loader, 2022 Merit 32-foot aluminum gooseneck tri-axle livestock trailer, 2020 John Deere 325G compact track loader, New Holland TD 5050 mechanical front tractor, and many more items. And Mert and Marilyn Shuttleworth are retiring. They live by Geneseo, Kansas, will sell a John Deere 9410R four-wheel drive tractor, Great Plains 32-foot Turbomax, John Deere S660 combine, a Great Plains 26-foot front fold drill, a 2006 John Deere 7820 mechanical front tractor. It'll be a great sale here on Wednesday, November the 19th. Thank you very much, Max.
Our FFA chapter tribute is brought to you by Geringoff. Check out the new XFR 50 Draper with 3 times more flexibility than the closest competitor at Geringoff.com. Geringoff, proudly built in the American heartland. This week, we're getting to know Meredith Ruda. She is serving as the Nebraska State FFA Vice President. Meredith, thanks for talking with us this week.
Thanks for having me.
Now, let's talk a little bit about how you grew up. Did you grow up working in agriculture?
I grew up in town and I moved out to the farm when I was in 5th grade, but I grew up spending a lot of time at my grandparents' farms, and I always knew I had a passion for agriculture and especially cattle.
So what was it that made you want to join FFA?
I showed cattle ever since I was 8, so a lot of my friends were in FFA, but none of the schools that I ever had been in provided FFA. And then freshman year, I moved to Logan View, and they had a chapter, so I joined it. And I really just enjoyed being a part of a community that appreciated the same thing I appreciate, which is agriculture and livestock.
So what are you looking forward to over the rest of your term as a vice president?
I am really excited to get into chapter visits. I want to be an ag teacher when I grow up, so it'll be really exciting to see how different programs are run, and then also just like this whole year meeting new members and just hearing their stories, hearing why they love FFA, and meeting new people.
That's what it's all about. You mentioned hoping to be an ag educator, and you're currently in school, is that right?
Yes, I'm currently a freshman at UNL.
That is fantastic, Meredith. Well, we wish you the best of luck in your year of service as the Vice President to the Nebraska State FFA, and good luck going forward. We certainly need more good folks going into ag education.
Thank you for having me.
In the world of ag technology, America is a leader, but there are some other contenders from around the globe, and a lot of those folks go to one of the largest farm shows in Germany called Agritechnica. Chad Colby joins us now with an update from the show.
Agritechnica wraps up this weekend in Hanover, Germany. Unfortunately, I was unable to make the trip this year, but I've been there before, and once again, this show delivered this year with a lot of new equipment and technology. Case IH introduced the new Optum 440 and updates to the 390 and 360 models with the new Cursor 9 engine, and improved CVX drive transmission, and a lot more connected features. New Holland earned 2 silver medals this year and previewed its new R4 autonomous robot. It will come in an electric and a diesel hybrid version. It's built to automate jobs in an orchard or vineyard like mowing, tillage, and spraying. John Deere's booth had a lot of attention as always. On display, they had the 9RX 830 4-track tractor, their new e-Power electric tractor concept, and the new 500R sprayer for the European market, and as you can see, it's got a front-mounted cab. Fendt showcased the Xavier GT, a hybrid autonomous system carrier designed for unmanned field operations. It offers adjustable track widths, full implement capabilities. I've got some pretty neat footage of it here working in the field. Pretty neat concept. Kinsey also had a very strong presence with a very busy booth, as you can see. They were talking about updates to their planter lineup, focusing on durability and technology. With more than 2,700 exhibitors from over 50 countries and more than 400,000 visitors, there's nothing quite like Agritechnica. Up next is the National Farm Machinery Show this February in Louisville, Kentucky, where you can bet some of the concepts and some of the things that you saw at Agritechnica will be on display there. That's a quick look at Agritechnica 2025. I've been to the show a few times before, and I'm already making my plans to return in 2027. For This Week in Agribusiness, I'm Chad Colby.
Yes, Chad, the National Farm Machinery Show in Louisville will be here before we know it, and we'll be there. We look forward to seeing all of you. And folks, don't go away. We'll have a conversation about Missouri's corn harvest when we return. With harvest moving into the rearview mirror, corn growers are beginning to assess their decisions for this year's corn crop. One such grower is Cody Brock. He farms outside Norburn, Missouri. And Cody, thanks for joining us this week.
You bet. Thanks for having me.
Now, remind us a little bit about your operation there in Missouri. What do you guys grow?
We farm here in West Central Missouri. I'm a fifth-generation farmer that grows corn and soybeans here on the Ray and Carroll County lines.
Now, how was the corn yield this year, Cody?
All things considered, it was very good. We were very pleased with the results overall as a farm-wide average. When we look back at some of the disease pressure we had late in the season, and as well as drought pressure too, everything turned out very good.
Now, you do plant Pioneer corn on the operation. How long has the farm been making that decision?
I would say close to 10 years now. We've been planting 100% Pioneer.
And why?
I think a lot of it is trust and customer service. I never question my seed dealer and the advice that he gives me. The right product on the right acre. I know with 100% of my heart that I can trust in the products that he's offering to me and where they need to be put and how to manage them throughout the growing season. The other thing is just customer service. Anytime I need something or we need seed late of a night or early of a morning, well, I know he's going to be there either at the warehouse or at the edge of the field with his tender ready to load our planter. Anything we need throughout the growing season, whether it's crop protection products or fertility questions or agronomy questions, I know I can always contact him, and him or one of his company members will be there at the drop of a hat. So.
A trusted resource makes a huge difference when we're working with a product like seed. Now, you mentioned some of the pressures you faced this year, southern rust as an example. How did the Pioneer corn perform overall?
I think when I compared it to some other competitor hybrids, it looked to me like it probably held up better, I think. The standability was still very good. We still had some plant health hanging on there towards the later growing season and into harvest. So, yeah, I was very pleased with how it performed.
For growers who might be considering Pioneer corn for 2026, what advice would you have for them?
I'd say you got to at least try it. I mean, you know, there was lots of challenges across all hybrids this year and all companies, but but it still seemed to perform at the top. And without hesitation, I think you've got to give it a try.
Pioneer's celebrating their 100th anniversary next year. Cody, what does that mean for you as a farmer who plants Pioneer seed?
I think it says a lot about the company just in being steadfast and being consistent in their research and their developments. And, you know, the products that they've offered for 100 years have always been very high performing, and they still are. And there's very few seed companies that can hang on for 100 years and offer that same type of product year in and year out.
That's true. Cody Brock, Missouri corn and soybean farmer, thank you so much for joining us this week.
You bet. Thank you.
Well, folks, Max Armstrong will be back next week behind the anchor desk here on This Week in Agribusiness, and we'll have a chance to dig into some of the information being released now that the government is back open. In addition, we are expected to see some updates to the proposed government bailout that was floated before the government shut down, so stay tuned. We'll have that information coming. Thank you so much for joining us this week. Be sure to catch us next time, right here for This Week in Agribusiness. This Week in Agribusiness is recorded in the Strauss Studio. Family owned since 1948 and trusted by pros worldwide, Strauss makes gear that works as hard as you do. Tough, functional, and resilient. This isn't just workwear, it's gear engineered to perform. Gear up now at Strauss.com.
This Week in Agribusiness is produced by 22 Creative Group and has been a presentation of Farm Progress Broadcast. We invite you to visit us online at agbizweek.com.